Hi, this is Privateer Station, and this morning we'll bring you day 332 of Russian invasion into Ukraine. As always, in a conversation format between ex-advisor to the office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel Olexiy Arestovich, and Mark Feygin, Russian opposition politician. Today they talk about the information psychological operation that is being conducted by Russia, or so it seems, against Ukraine, and what are the consequences. Also, before we go there, I want to express our deep gratitude to our members who are supporting our channel. Among them, of course, Klaus Predidis is one of the first and strongest. And I want to also mention Jay Murr, and I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correct, Marmule, Olga Lewis, Carolyn G., John Afseth, Wendy, Zenny Gaming. You guys have been supporting us for about 4 months already, so very appreciate it. Also, feel free to chime in the comments of the video. Just let us know where you're from. I know we are watched in the United States, in Canada, in New Zealand, in Australia, a lot in Europe, and even in Russia. People are sharing our links to their US and foreign contacts. Without further ado, here's day 332. Enjoy. Dear friends, glad to see you all on Feigin Live. It is Saturday, January 21st. Time is 2 minutes after 10 in Kiev and 2 minutes after 11 in Moscow p.m. We are doing another stream, day 332 with Olexiy Arestovich. Olexiy, glad to see you. Good evening, everybody. I'm glad to see you all. We have about 100,000 who have joined us already. Thank you, everybody who is expecting us on Saturday and who are coming here to that stream. Do not forget to share links, subscribe. If you are listening or watching that in English, also do the same with the Privateer channel station that is bringing you these streams in English. All right, let's start. We'll go to the overall topic, but have you seen it still continues? You are tickling Moscow, and they thought they sunk you and were pushing you off with their foot, I guess, in that effort to continue bringing you down. And apparently they are raising another attack against you, stating that you lost everything, gave everything up. I watched that video briefly. Didn't see anything that Moscow accused you about, but as an effort, it's definitely a continuation because there is an anti-campaign happening. It has its own goals, methods, and steps, and apparently they are still targeting you, regardless of your status. What do you think about that? Tell us more. I have a desire, Mark, to make an experiment and write something. Today is a good weather. And I want to see if Russian Telegram trash bins can make another wave of hate. If you're not aware, check it out. Solovyov and some others, and even Ukrainian bloggers were jumping on the bandwagon that I talked in a stream with Romanenko that Ukraine will lose war. So I won't even go in details. First, we will not lose this war. Second, it will be more difficult to win this war for us because Putin is desperately trying to not lose it. As an example, we talked about it. About a month ago, they had 230,000 on our territory. Now it's about 320. So they are adding more troops. Fulfilling the task and the goal of this war, as we see it, not a single Russian troop on our territory, depends upon the support and timeliness of Western allies with ammo and armor and weapons, support that they keep sending, and also our internal attitude, internal readiness to fight the foe. We need a long will to counter Russian because they do have their long will. They are well trained to use this weapon. Sometimes they are eager to spend 100 years trying to achieve their goals. So from 1658, and they finally, it took them 100 years in those years to cross to the right bank and invade Poland, which was Poland in those times, and as peacekeepers, right? So they do have long will to reach their goals, and they continue with their information operations as well. And some of our people are biting and continuing to flow with what Russia is suggesting for discussion. And the war is very flimsy character that needs a lot of attention. So my suggestion, pay less attention to these quarrels online and these media injections. Pay more attention to our fighting. I also personally thank General Milley, President Duda of Poland, who are struggling and fighting to bring attention to the difficulties of this war and to the imminent need to bring more weapons to Ukraine. Some people can even thank me for bringing continuously shedding this light on what's happening. I also want to say that if you will continue watching Russian trash bins regularly, I will be sorry for your brains and your spirit. Better watch me and Mark. We'll still be supporting your psychological sanity, even if you'll be hating us after. And that's about what I wanted to say. I will add for myself here, thank you, Olexiy, that this is a very often temptation to control such a mass with high plasticity via shape, because content, we understand it often cannot change because it matters with what you're dealing with. This channel, my channel, was being built as anti-Putin channel, as a channel aimed at toppling his regime, and this war made it partly pro-Ukrainian, because war is a central question right now. And to keep diving into this channel and look for words, sentences, some stories, some counterproductive storyline, this is not a smart thing to do. Why we have different people with different opinions and views here is that we're trying to shed the light on from different perspectives. The only people we don't invite here are, the only opinion that we don't bring here is pro-Putin's opinion. We're not giving them platform here. But within the resisting side, within people of the world who want to get rid of his regime, we offer different views. Mark, here is more about the logic of these people who criticize. They're saying Arestovych is a traitor and is an agent of FSB, so he needs to be sent to command our troops on the front. Where else would FSB agent be useful, right? Give him 600 Ukrainian troops on some important direction. Second, there another piece of logic. He was not a staff advisor, and he could not have quit. But they also demand my resignation. Then, recent example, they're telling that Ukraine will not win in a stream that is dedicated to the world, how it will be after Russia has lost this war. So, people who are watching us and who are trying to analyze different sources of information, keep logic. It is important. Keep connecting things together, understanding how it works. Because in Russia it is prohibited. They completely apparently lost the capacity to analyze things. And it's probably a prohibited causation relations between events. It is a prohibited tool to use in Russia. Right, Olexiy. And in any case, Putin's regime apparently is expert at grasping at straws, and they can make an elephant out of the fly or a bullet out of shit. And this capacity that they possess it also depends upon their audience. If the audience is eating it, it works. Mark, how did that happen that on the 11th month of war, a part of Ukrainians started listening to what Moscow is saying? I think, Olexiy, it's because of a certain level of depletion. The war goes on, and some of the people are just getting tired. Yeah, and the weird part, Mark, is that also some of our opposition is jumping on that bandwagon, and people are looking into this. For 10 months, it didn't happen, and it was quiet. Now that our opposition is starting to attack our people, they all of a sudden started posting things and saying, "Oh, Solovyov says." So, I have a question: these super patriots of Ukraine, how long since I've been started watching Solovyov's streams? You even watching his shows? Really? You're fighting for life, but you're watching his stage and participating in the information war that is being conducted against you and your country? This is Solovyov's wet dream, to be captured by Ukrainian patriots and to be discussed and to be used to attack Ukrainian figures. So it's not about me, really. It's about what you are bringing, what you are talking about. Watch that, people. It's important. It's okay. We will not be spending too much time on this topic. Mark, this is a very important topic. This is a psychological operation, psychological information operation that is being conducted against Ukraine on the verge of a very important battle. And this is one of the key elements of their strategy right now. Because the person in charge, he actually wrote the doctrine, including that information support of his operations. Oh, yeah, absolutely, Alex, I agree. When I was defending characters like Savchenko and others who were captured by Russia, and I was working to trade them for the captured foes. So political intention was to exchange them, because Russian courts, they're horrible. They don't exist. Sushchenko was exchanged as part of the 2019 exchange, 37 for 39. Umerov, together with Chigozov, were exchanged for two operators of FSB, two FSB killers who assassinated a person in Turkey. So, Savchenko was exchanged for Russian military intel person. But every time, to destroy that effect, that they actually are exchanging somebody, they were attacking attorney, they were taking steps, they were attacking letters that we wrote, and everything they could find. The main is result. Result was we exchanged and got those people out, and the main result here, when Ukraine wins, Putin's regime will go deep into the very dark place. Right, Mark. And we're expecting it to be soon. Not if, but when. Right, I agree with you. We expect it to be in 23. I think we'll successfully conclude it this year. All right. There was another publication, and I want to address some attention to that. I want to be careful. I was careful thinking about bringing it up, but still I want to bring it up and have you address it. Very strange publication from Wall Street Journal. We're bring it to the screen. Published by Brad Forrest, Russian spy or Ukrainian hero, about Denis Kiev, who was a banker. Here's his picture. First negotiation that he took part were in Istanbul. He was actually active participant, and this is a detective story in the style of John le Carré or something like that. And the story is that we're trying to bring his picture to the screen of Kiev. He partook in negotiations on the Ukrainian side, and he was shot and killed by Ukrainian special security forces. And it turned out he was an agent of Russian military intel, and he was playing a part of double agent, and apparently he was in active touch with some FSB persons in Moscow. Here we highlighted him with the red circle. He's with Rakhami, Reznikov, and others, participants of those negotiations. And that story placed a lot of questions. What actually happened? Could you comment on this, the publication and the story itself? Let's do this. First of all, I am a graduate of that system, right? Of special services. When this publication appeared, I took a pause and thought about some details. I saw some questions that could have been posed. From the professional point of view, they would not be able to hold water. We could have discussed all that, but I have another factor that tramples all it. A very simple one. Oh, bring it up. The fact that Shari supported Wall Street Journal 100%. I can send his tweet. We can put it up on the screen. Oh no, I'm not reading that shit. I tried to stay away from him. Yeah, okay. So he basically confirmed that how bad is Ukrainian intel, how awful is General Poklad, the head of SBU, and I know that this general is such an extra level professional that even specialists from Britain and other Western allies and very sophisticated people come here to learn how to do counterintelligence operations, basically use his experience and what he does in the country that is fighting active war. So for me it became clear, if Shari joins a certain side of this argument and starts to attack another key figure, it is an attempt to attack another key figure in the system of national defense interests of Ukraine. First of all, to shed extra light on him, while his job actually requires quiet space and concentration, and to attack Ukrainian counterintel services. And I know this person is fighting to his last breath for the interests of Ukraine. He already has several wounds during this war that he suffered, and contusion and more. He's always on the forefront. He's going before his people. And the person who is so professionally collecting the scalps of Putin's intel officers and agents, I understand. Arestovich is one little topic, but if they manage to topple that figure, they would win a big success. So when I saw Shari chiming in and jumping it on this topic to kick that character, to kick our general, it became clear for me. So you understand also, I'm thinking about Wall Street Journal. Western press is not always a source of info. It's not too difficult to make a publication even in Wall Street Journal if you have money and right access. I'm not even talking about bribes and all, it's just some strategic motivation. And Yuri Shvets, for example, an ex-KGB operative, also published his opinion, who's living in the United States. He expressed his opinion on that topic, and he also posed right questions. Illarionov's statement, attack on Arestovych, a big, scary war, bad Poklad that needs to be kicked out, all these links of a big chain of one big operation that is being conducted against Ukraine. And this is not the last scandal that Putin's regime will try to pull. The speed of with which they appear, it's actually entertaining. It's about one scandal per day, right? So it's almost like when, two sides are standing, shooting at each other. If one side starts shooting a lot more, it usually precludes them getting up and trying to attack. So now we see a lot more such a wave of information attacks coming from Russia. So I expect this is a prelude to a bigger offensive. It actually follows Gerasimov's doctrine, who is the head of Russian command, which says that hybrid war needs to have the main emphasis on information psychological operation to discredit their key figures, to cause inner bickering, and all that follows exact that paradigm. It's classic. And it's good, I want to say, that you and me have such an influence, have so many viewers, that we can tell our people what is happening, that they're trying to swindle people in their public opinion. And we need to maintain people's attitude to not become food, to stay at the table as the participant and not become food at that table. The moment they start jumping on the bandwagon of the fringe parties and fringe theories is the moment when they lose the grip on their position and they start shaking, if not the aquarium of Ukraine in attempts to spill and break it apart, but also their personal psychological state will be deteriorating if they keep jumping into all the things that Russia injects in our media sphere. So please keep your heads cool. We understand there is an operation going on against us. Please be critical to every publication that accuses Ukrainians in treason, in dirty methods, in working for Russia, because Russia discovered that path. They figured it works, and they will be using it over and over again. And Ukraine is a nation of counter-intel people. We keep looking for enemies among our friends. And that archetypical creature of bickering and dark attacks against each other, I did address that in Romanenko's stream. This is what is actually one of the Achilles heels, or can be qualified as such, for Ukraine. So Russian side figured out this is the weak spot. For 400, 500 years, we've been brooding over that we've been looking for a neighbor who is a treason, that somebody who is a traitor on our side. It's been kind of somewhat an archetypical thing. I'm thankful that our nation learned a lot during this war, and such a psychosis inspired by Russia only affects a very small number of people, but they exist. And their number is slowly growing. This is a dangerous tendency, and we'll be shedding light on that, and I hope we can reverse that. So today there was a scandal, another scandal somebody wrote about bribery and in Ministry of Culture, and I was smiling that they'll probably peg it on Arestovych, because in Bravary, where the helicopter crashed with Monastyrsky, I was actually told by a local that for a day they were discussing a weird injection of news that Arestovich, when he resigned, he gave Russian spies the coordinates of the flight of Monastyrsky and his team, so Russians could shoot down the helicopter, and Arestovich is now over on Russian side already. So they discussed that for a whole day in all seriousness. Imagine that. So as a good note about Monastyrsky, by the way, people usually don't really like their police in every country, but on his funeral, there was a huge gathering of people, both professionals from his ministry and also from just average citizens. Everybody came out to support him. So I'm glad people understand that and see through all this media propaganda. But I keep smiling, saying that, yeah, it'll be just peg it on Arestovich. I am the one responsible for everything. I'm the one who is raising prices on the market, who is breaking power supply lines. I'm the one who is doing all that. And pay attention to what our foes are targeting. They are targeting key figures ahead of counterintel. They are targeting, trying to target Podolyak. They're trying to target me. You'd think in 3 days, 3 key figures becoming targets of a public attack? That seems like a trend, right? Okay, Olexiy, we're trying to join it all together. That's an interesting story. But let's get back to Kiriev's story. Is it concluded? Do we understand what's happening there? Because he was present at negotiations, right? Mark, investigation is going on, and DBR is doing the investigation, and people, I trust them, I trust they're specialists, so it may take time for them to uncover all the criminal connections, and whenever they have full information of the picture, I'm sure society will be informed of everything that is not classified. And I would be looking also in the origins of this article, but it could be also coincidence. Sometimes these things happen. But when Shari chimed in, that was a good flag for me. That was a good sign. Okay, we have 321,000 viewers. Let's talk about something else then. Well, Mark, you know, the biggest psychological information operation since the beginning of this war cannot be a small target. So if we are working on that front, it's definitely a target for us to look into. If we are supporting with information and providing psychological and intel support to our citizens, thank you for bringing it up. That's much appreciated. I know you're probably trying to get back to the map, right, and bring it on the screen. Yes, I do want to do that, but also let's go talk to Rammstein, right? We discussed the results. Oh yeah, this is another link in the big chain. Rammstein is another important event. It basically, the main topic of this Rammstein is that we have not succeeded in breaking all of the tank barrier. Understandably, Brits are sending us challengers, so that's awesome, but we were also targeting to get some Leopards, which I think NATO has about 1,500 sprinkled throughout Europe. So we could have gotten a full-bodied tank brigade. That hasn't happened yet. Bundestag didn't support that in their voting. Germany came out and said that they're not ready yet. Immediately there were statements of support from Poland and from America, and even Biden answered in one of the interviews that Ukraine will get everything in time. So the tank barrier was not taken rapidly, but we managed to make a hole in it, and we're getting some challengers. It's important that Poles mentioned that it's important to bring tanks before the spring comes to Ukraine. And United States supported that. It just outlines once again how difficult this fight is. Remember, we showed a screen with the list. There were 18 HIMARS and others. This has not been fully approved yet. The one that is coming out of Rammstein is about a third less, but even what is coming out officially, what is open and confirmed, it satisfied the size of one brigade, actually with extra. A little more than that. And we can see that one army corps. So in essence, we are supporting an army corps with everything that's coming out of Rammstein. Even Germany said they will supply up to €1 billion in this round worth of weapons. So this is a difficult struggle. This is a difficult struggle of opinions, and we will continue fighting for that. The rhetoric is pretty sharp on both sides, on all sides. Those who want to give tanks, those who are still on the fence about it. But I would resume here that the fight will continue and we will prevail. And even now we're getting enough support for an army corps equipment. And this is a very strong input into our defense and our capacity to conduct counteroffensive operations. And this is, of course, enlarging of both assortment and quantity. And a qualitative jump. 100 strikers, that's a serious story. All right, I see. Olexiy, let's discuss it from this angle. And now an ex-Minister of Defense of Germany, Christina Lambrecht, during the whole war period for 11 months, she took, to put it mildly, she was taking a reserve position about the war in support of Ukraine. And recently, before her resignation, a week before she left her position of Minister of Defense of Germany, she forbade to inventorize the Leopard tanks that are part of Bundeswehr, because apparently that could have aided to additional pressure on Germany to provide tanks to Ukraine. So that's just some bits and pieces of information coming out, but I think she was playing an active role in that. How much Scholz was related to that, to these decisions, it's hard to tell, because on one hand, he is part of the party that was a pocket party for Putin and regime. They had an earlier chancellor who was actually bringing him water, different meetings. So it's a bit difficult to look into all the details. But do you think it's Moscow's influence that is precluding and influencing the decision about tank support? So about the resignation, Mark, about resignation of ex-minister, I think here it works the null principle of just blame everything on the one who resigned. But there's a broken logic here, because she is not a minister anymore. If she was stopping you, you can supply it now, right? But no, they don't. Bundestag voted, Alternative of Germany voted against it within Bundestag. They are the part of a wide public consensus that shapes certain political opinions, and this is an opinion of some of the German voters, and they didn't have enough votes to push through with the tank support decision. And we cannot say Germany is completely influenced by Putin, because they actually took some serious measures. They nationalized a couple of big companies run by Putin's regime, which were supplying gray money to bribe European politicians. But so we cannot say that Russian Federation is fully controlling German government, right? That would be a wrong statement. But do they affect the public opinion in Germany? Remember, there was a poll about a week ago. German numbers were pretty uncomfortable for us. Most of Germans support Ukraine, but still the share that are on the Putin's propaganda side is significant. And I think this is a result of what they are doing, of how Putin's Russia is trying to affect with their propaganda the European society. And it's a bit serious, yeah. Germany has had a lot of economic relations with Russia before the war, and this finally, for now, translates into them not supporting tanks to us. But they are doing a lot of other things. They're supporting us air defense systems, the ones that are not even on their own roster in Germany, the newest ones. And I think Germany is country number 4 or 5 in the list by the quantity and quality of things they supply. So we cannot say they're failing, they are not even supporting us. They're just struggling to overcome the tank barrier right now. And in order to not supply tanks with all the pressure that is being exerted onto Germany, one would need a serious reason to not do that, right? So this is probably a combination of factors. It's probably a personal factor there, a factor of production capability, a factor of what is the state of Germany and its armed forces right now, because when Merkel took power, they had 26 brigades, now they have only 6, and not fully equipped. So add Russian propaganda to that, and that opinion that they're trying to peddle to not spill the war beyond the borders of Ukraine. And the possibility of NATO getting involved in this war is not from the fantasy land for an average German voter. They see that this may happen. So some of them are very careful about that. And in democracy, it takes some time to convince people, but this is the method that democracies use. They don't override people. They actually try to convince and discuss and find the right solution. And I believe that Germany will find it in itself to start supplying tanks, or to allow other countries supplying tanks to us. And this is a serious fight that needs to happen. Germans were never simpletons. They were never too remote from the situations here. They understood pretty well what's happening, and we saw how they were changing their position after Steinmeier's visit to Ukraine, how they changed their opinion on many things. So they will walk this walk, and they will supply tanks us at some point of this fight. And it's not only Germany, by the way, that is helping us. So for now, we have Poland, who is already bringing us T-72s news and United States coming out and saying that, well, we're not supporting tanks yet, but we are starting to prepare Ukrainian tankers. That means that it's important, and of course, if the tankers are being trained, that means that the tanks are coming. And again, coming back to Germany, it's not because they're evil and cowardly. They already proved that that's not the reason, because otherwise Germany would not be supplying us their current newest air defense systems, and they would not be able to get off the Russian needle of energy sources. And it just takes time to change that. And they're also supporting martyrs to us. This is technically one step lower than the tanks, so it's already a good step forward. All right, so we've been live for about 34 minutes. Let's take a look at the map and just maybe spend a couple minutes on it. When you will be giving this review, can you, or do you think that motion near Ugledar and Zaporozhye and continuous offensive on Donbass area, that is, that offensive that is being prepared, this is the first slow phase of it, of Russian troops? So, okay, look, Mark. In Zaporozhye, they have about 26 battalion tactical groups. They form two echelons there. This is a classic setup that allows you to do both, to conduct defense and also switch into offensive regime if you need to. And their main goal there is to push us further from the railroad, Volnovakha-Tokmak, that supplies the whole southern front. And they need to push us further, so would be further than 33 kilometers from Tokmak. And after the blow up of the Crimean Bridge, they only had two lifelines, right, to support their southern front. And after the explosion on the bridge, they're facing a serious issue here on this railroad. And they're continuing to aggregate some troops in Kherson slowly. They're making some operations in those islands in the mouth of the river, but they're simulating some activity to just keep us on our feet. If need be, they can obviously take Kherson groups and move them to Melitopol to support there. As for Avdiivka, Krasnaya Gora, Kremenaya in the north, this is all the same ideation. It's regrouping on the tactical level. They are bringing more troops to the front. They're creating second and third lines of defense, and they're creating command centers, logistics, and they're trying to probe our defense line. This is not a big offensive, but this is an action that, let's put it this way, gives them enough information, gives them the right information they need on how and where to conduct their major offensive. So if to put it simply for civilian people, this is sort of a gathering intel with small fighting. So they have some ideas, but they still want to get more confirmation, so they keep probing us here and there. Big offensive is when you do an artillery prep, aviation strike, and then your troops move in. And the most part of the front, it's bothering actions, it's probing actions, and some parts it's attacking actions, and it's only in Bakhmut and Soledar where they actually do any storming action. And they succeeded in one part, a small part near Bakhmut, then they eventually were kicked out, and at least that's what I heard from the military guys holding the line. And they've been posting fake news about capturing more things on the Russian side, and most of them turned out to be fake. And they will continue posting that. They will be taking 20 Bakhmuts and 40 Solidars in their media. So we need to stay strong. We need to not pay them attention. And the good part is that we need and we have the capacity to resist them. It was a beautiful time early in summer when we were laughing at every Russian post. And this time around, it appears our society is a bit more tired, so they pay more concern. They're a little more concerned when they hear something from the Russian trash bins that they captured another Solidar or some other settlement. Don't they? It's fake. A lot, 90%, 95% of that is fake. So don't pay them attention. Almost 365,000 are with us. Another thing, Olexiy, we had an interesting statement by United States that was torn apart informationally about Crimea. That Crimea is Ukrainian territory, right? Yeah. We saw that too, that Crimea is supported to be Ukrainian territory by United States. Right. So on Russian side, they started considering that Crimea may be supported as a legit target for Ukrainian military to be retaken. So, looking at all that, do you think the plans of that kind are, and that's what leaked to the press, that the plans for that are being worked of liberation of Crimea? Yeah. So, United States did come out and say that they do work together with Ukraine to aid in figuring out military plans of retaking the Crimea. Well, since it's strategy. If we are looking at the current front, we understand that Russia doesn't have too many chances around it. They are putting a lot of effort in defending Crimea, so they are afraid of something. And we understand that Americans are not really shy anymore about talking about the South, Melitopol, Mariupol, Crimea, and they did leak that information and support that, yeah, we are talking about military operations in Crimea, and I was surprised that they leaked that, but okay, it's probably a time when everybody talks about everything. I mean, Olexiy, allies can work on different military operations, right, for the war. Of course, but it's rare that it spills out in the media, especially big operations like that. I'm looking at these times that these are the times of big shakeups. Moldova recently came out and they're saying that they're now considering joining NATO. They have an active conflict with Russia on their territory, and they are talking about NATO. Kozak is talking about an interesting plan. I saw him about a year and a half ago. I would say there's some responsibility. If there is any responsibility for this war, then his position was very aggressive. He was very rough with French and Germans. He was trying to hold the protocol line with us, but he was very aggressive towards France and Germany. And there was no decision to support provocations. I don't know. He was considered to be a dove. No. He is not a dove. I would not say that. He demonstrated brutal pride, and I think he was punished for pride. But the cherry on the cake was air defense systems in Moscow, the training that they did to defend Moscow from potential attack of Ukrainian drones. And by the way, a day before, remember what Nebenza, Russian United Nations representative, said? He said that placing air defense systems in the city is a crime. But what about placing an air defense system on the rooftop of Ministry of Defense in Moscow? Oh, right, this is not a crime for them. They're allowed to do anything. Amazing, right? And one more thing, March, the month of March. the countries which set the upper limit to the price of oil are set to review that. So that's interesting, right? Oh yeah, yeah. I hope they bring it down to 30, right? Our president was fighting for that. The head of the office was fighting for that, and I think, and our whole office were fighting. Um, we were fighting. How much will it be, Olexiy? 30? Well, we were fighting for 45 actually, to bring it down to 45. I would be fighting for 20 if I could, but it'll be interesting to see how low will they bring the price down. I agree. At least it's got to be 45. 50 is not serious. From all the numbers that I saw, they talked about 60 and then about 45. I don't know if 45 will fly, but Russian leadership will be doing offensive operation against Ukraine in that time frame. If it'll be a hot element of this war, hot phase of this war, the chance that we'll have a upper limit at 45 will probably increase. 60 means big issues for Russia by summer. 45 means by spring, by end of spring, because their budget is already being cut. They don't have enough income. Russia as a social system only is holding by enforcing and funding their enforcement agencies and funding their regions. 2/3 of them are in the red, so they need money, donations from the center. Another news. There was an article that new drone is supposedly Iranian made, as Kiev said. So is it? Oh yeah, yeah. That was already dispelled. Our specialists, an international specialist, came out and said, no, no, no. This is indeed an Iranian drone. A very respectable person just made a slip of the tongue, and it's not even a slip of the tongue on his behalf. That it was media that decided to read it differently and twist it a little, and that brought up the news of a drone not being Iranian. So we had to chime in and say, no, no, no. General Prosecution Office came out and said we have no qualms that it is an Iranian drone, but one thing is to know it is, another is to gather enough accusation material to attack Iran and bring them to justice about it. Well, okay, I'll take that. And Iran actually stepped in recently and said that they do support the territorial integrity of Ukraine, right? So maybe with all the things considered, you guys are still talking to Iran, right? Ukraine and Iran still talk diplomatically. We do, Mark, but the funny thing is that Iran, which is attacked on about so many issues, about them killing their own opposition and being an authoritative regime, they do behave themselves much more civilized than Putin's Russia, who is a member of the UN Security Council. So imagine that. Anyway, okay, thank you, Olexiy. Another topic. You did mention Larionov. I had him here on my show a while ago about len-lease. I give a microphone to different sides of anti-Putin front, and we are a channel of free exchange of ideas. We're not a channel of propagandists here. So he was talking a certain thing that Arestovych and other representatives of the office of the president back in the day, that len-lease is one of the tools that Ukraine could be getting weapons, ammo, and other military support from the United States on par with 7 others. He's actually very pedantic. He went in depth into the sources, and he's not questioning that, yes, there are different ways to support, and he was very prepared for this conversation. He's saying that Ukraine is basically refusing or playing some part in not taking len-lease route. And I don't know, he pointed that you said that you explained that sometime. And here I quote, because the weapons received on len-lease program need to be returned back to the United States. Once again, I have not heard you saying that. He referenced it. You did not say that on my show, but he did say that len-lease is essentially not claimed by Ukraine, a form of support that was not claimed by Ukraine. effectively. And he's hinting at your statement that Reznikov, at Makarov, that len-lease program may be sinking. Okay, Mark, remember probably last stream when I did count a bunch of different methods that America can support us in this war. And people are mixing some things here. Those who push for the topic of len-lease to become more active, more prominent, they are mixing the procedure with the actual weapons. Len-lease is not weapons. Len-lease is the form, the way of weapons will be given to Ukraine. And if it is not operational yet, it means that other forms are probably more effective. This is my personal opinion and suggestion, supposition. I'm not an official position, not an official capacity to bring it up. So we have 7 different ways of supplying arms to Ukraine. 6 of them work, 1 doesn't. And we don't know why and for what reason is this one not working yet. What is the inner agreement logic of supplies, logic of manufacturing of American industrial complex? And just imagine what we'll do if in April all of a sudden len-lease program will be activated and they'll supply a ton of weapons and say, well, that's len-lease, right? We don't need, do we care how they bring it? We don't care about the procedure. We need Americans to continue supporting us with arms. Are they supporting us with arms? Yes, they are. I think in plenty, right? In huge numbers. By artillery shells. NATO, Europe, and the United States are bending over backwards to increase the production and to be able to support the needs of this war on our side. So I don't personally care what's the path they choose, as long as they choose to support us. But who's choosing the program? Is it Ukrainian side or Americans? Let's do it this way today. Something like that. You're a lawyer, right? Can a deal be concluded only with one side when the other doesn't participate? Well, it depends. I mean, there are different programs. There are ones where you need to pay money or do some returns, and there are others where you don't. Right? For the most part, Mark, we are getting programs under which you do not have to return or pay anything back. So they're probably a bit more preferable, right, than the others. Well, especially if, exactly, Olexiy, if one side wants to give you weapons, it doesn't really matter what exactly you think about that, as long as you're eager to accept, right? So, yes, Mark. So we are being offered an idea that leadership of Ukraine and leadership of United States do not want to win the war. Is that what they're attacking here? No, the first one, I would say, and Ilarionov never really, Andrei Nikolaevich never really expressed it himself, but that's what I'm reading from the others. If you remember, Sparts, that member of Republican Party, she talked about some corruption, some weapons that are being traded. Shvets in his streams was quoting some publications. I did not pay too much attention, maybe it was just his opinion, but he was trying to quote American press in this regard. So one of them is that the weapons are being traded somewhere. Doesn't even sound like a corruption issue, it's just more that it's being diverted for something else. And the second is, in the current condition, somehow these programs that are used are not effective, that len-lease is the best program. Yeah, I remember they're saying that there's a lot of equipment that is being stored in deserts of the United States, and they can just transfer that, right? And that could be done under len-lease. Okay, well, as much as I know, Mark, even the West just giving the equipment they do, it's West. That'll be the size of the manual. The average size of the manual is 2 inches thick. Imagine it's not just taking tanks from desert. They'll need to get contractors to work them, to prepare them, to train us. So I think it's a bigger logistic picture. that they are looking at. And one needs to consider all factors together and how they jive together. The complexity suggests that very few people understand the deep picture of it. And I would suggest here that without understanding the full depth of it, it probably is a little wrong to make statements, to make conclusions. Asking questions is right. We like asking questions. It's a holy grail. But coming to conclusions when you're limited in your data, that is probably not the most fruitful approach. And of course, public society, people and journalists have to be asking these questions. That is the right way to do. But I would be asking these questions not in attacking President Biden or President Zelensky that they don't want to have more arms delivered to Ukraine, but just pose it as questions. Why? What is more effective? What are the benefits of this versus the other? Because President Zelensky, the way he fights like a tiger for our weapons and support internationally, I don't think there's anybody else who is fighting that much. And I will even take the damned spy Yermak, another guy who is sleeping on a cot in the office. As long as I was in the office, he was still sleeping on a cot in his office. He doesn't even go home most times. And he's continuously in the international negotiations. I would remind those who like to scream that he is the head of the office. He also has another position as a political advisor to the president. And as a political advisor, he's actually in charge of solving a lot of questions about arms. The way they go fight this war to convince our Western allies to supply arms in all kinds and ways. You haven't seen this, gentlemen. I have. This is very respectable. This is very honorable how they fight for our country. So without knowing all the complexity of these facts, I would not be ready to make a conclusion and attack one side or the other about len-lease program. And when I did say that len-lease may be less acceptable or less desirable for Ukraine. This was as a suggestion. This was not as a statement. That was basically, I was posing a question. What if it is less effective? And please don't strip it into articles and flashy titles, but of course they will. CMark streams that we do every other day, they end up being a bit more fruitful. They're being a bit more interesting in topics to discuss. I agree, Olexiy, but if the hot phase will reignite again, we may need to jump into that. Yeah, Mark, if need be, we'll be doing it daily. If need be, we can actually do it twice a day if at some case Mark will be providing support as much as it's needed. And on the Russian side, they are doing that information intel support operation to their offensive. They even engaged Putin in doing that. So, dear viewers, I suggest you to monitor the media and see who else will they attack and which other figures they will be pointing their fingers at. They'll be named by Moscow sources, and some of Ukraine fringe opposition will jump on the bandwagon with that. And we'll be here to help you understand what's happening. Okay. You did mention, Olexiy, it was in the first streams that they will condemn me. They will not remember anything good about that, right? Oh yeah, I can actually emphasize more. I can bring more to that. On the first days when I started that job, I knew that when people are idolize somebody, there will come a time when they will topple you. So on the first days of this war, when I had a lot of support, I understood that this will likely end in flames just like it did. So I kind of knew that there'll be a time when that'll be that phase. Oh, it's not over yet. I think everything is dependent upon the situation on the front. If our army will continue holding the front and will be pushing back on Putin's troops, we'll be good. And if there'll be more hot news coming from the front, we'll increase the number of our streams. Right, Mark. I do believe in the fact that our viewers have more goodness in them than evil. and I do believe that the light will prevail. Absolutely, Alexei. The majority is usually pretty good. It's just a radioactive minority that is trying to swindle everybody else. Well, that's my question mark. Who's going to set the agenda? The small radioactive group or the majority? That's the question to the adequate majority. Guys, why do you allow several toxic marginals to set the agenda for the day? You need to be more active. It's our common victory. Okay, so on Tuesday we meet again. Mark, by the way, it has a practical implication, which, what do you mean? Like and repost. If you don't want to be just sitting on the sofa and listening, please bother yourself to click like and share, because otherwise you are letting the marginals to play that. Yeah, I agree, Alexei. The only way to successfully attack them, if you are just a viewer, share link, click the like, and subscribe. All right, let's target Tuesday, Mark. If there'll be any bright events, any bright things happening, I'll be able to come out on Monday as well. If there is anything of high value happening, sure. All right, it's the last decade of January. Everybody has been prognosticating that this is the beginning of February when the major operation will start. So we're standing at ready and do extra streams and support as needed. Thank you for spending that whole hour with us. Please continue sharing and liking. We got about 370,000 viewing, over 130,000 clicking the like button. Please continue subscribing to both channels and to the privateer station as well, and we will continue bringing you these streams as often as they come out. All right, and we'll see you Tuesday, and we'll go from there. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.